So
No, this is amazing. What's so amazing about this Someone Like Me speaker series is that you, you get to meet so many people, right?
no,
And I was just going through my notes about your story, and I was going through so many some just thoughts. Both my parents are the military, so I wanted to say, number one, thank you so much for your service.
okay, thank you,
Um, and
thank your parents as well.
yeah. I mean, without them, I wouldn't be here, right?
Yeah.
I'm a military child. I never went into the military. I always thought about it, right? I always
Mhm.
thought about going into the military. I almost went to the academy. Um, but I guess the first question I have to ask you is just how do you make how do you make your mind, aside from the obvious of like your commitment to your country? How do you make up your mind to go into the military and serve?
Well, I made up my mind when I was in high school, and being born in Stockton, California, which to me, even as an adult now, I don't feel like there was a lot of great opportunities in that environment that I lived in. And so I wanted to go to college, but I didn't have the funds or the means to make that happen. So joining the military was something that was on my mind. Um, getting getting out of high school once I graduated, and I probably committed to that idea around my what sophomore junior year. Initially, it was going to be the Army, but I decided on the Marine Corps once my friend introduced me to the Marines. We went to the
Mm.
recruiting office, and you know, once I went to that recruiting office, I was just like, this is what I envisioned. This is what I wanted to do. And it just happened to be the Marine Corps solidified exactly what I wanted. And my mom initially did not approve. She did not like that idea, but she gave me her blessing before I went to boot camp, and it became honestly a worthwhile experience since not only did I get the benefit of getting schooling out of joining the military, but I also initially joined the military to find myself as a person, uh, because I didn't grow up with a father figure. So for me personally, it was more defining who I am, solidifying who I am as a person, with those disciplines that the Marine Corps was going to instill in me. And so I was very hard headed. I'm still very stubborn. The Marine Corps couldn't take that out of me. But it ended up being something I don't regret. I think I'm the only person out of my family to join the military. I think, if I'm correct, my grandfather was in the military, but no one ever talked about that. So it's kind of hard for me to say what he did if he was. But yeah, I know I'm the only person out of my family to be in the military, so it's been a blessing overall.
Well, I would say, I guess we have that in common because I'm hard headed as well. Some of us just have those gifts. I'd like to say that being hard headed is a little bit more of a gift. That's because you see
Mhm.
things a certain way, and that's because you like doing things a certain way, and that's because you've
Mhm.
experienced life a certain way. And so, I just wanted to again welcome you to the Someone Like Me speaker series by Gatorade Endurance. And the platform and the movement is really around how the world of endurance sports have ultimately changed. Um,
Okay.
the the sports themselves, but also the people that are
Mhm.
playing and competing in these sports. And I think it goes back to where you come from and what do you love and what do you do. So, take me back a little bit more to your life. And then I want to bring us forward to the point of which, you went into the Marine Corps,
Mhm.
um, you stepped on an IUD, you went through different bouts in your life, and then you met Koja. So I want to get to that as well. But
Dynamic.
but I want you to start off with, a little bit more about your background and where you came from and how you really developed that hard head.
Okay, so I was born and raised in Stockton, California. A few pieces that people may or may not even know about me, but I was adopted, but not until I was officially 19. And in the early stages of my life, from probably about 10 to 18, I was in foster care, still living in
Mm,
Stockton, and then adopted at 19 by who I consider my mom, who raised me from ages of 0 to 10. So it's a little bit of confusion for a lot of people. But in short, I don't know my biological parents. I don't know my biological mom. I don't know my biological father. So I don't know anything about them or, what they've gone through, uh, or, for me to be in this situation. So going through all of that led me to have this mindset of I I have to survive. I have to do what I need to do to
mm,
um, make it. And I was raised with with good spirited people. Taught how to be proper, respectful. But in hindsight, I don't feel like I was given all the all the required tools to become an adult. Um, Once I turned 18, and so joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. Decided I wanted to go infantry, and the reason I chose infantry was because I wanted to experience war. I remember where I was in, a 9/11, 2001, but I didn't like that people had that third perspective of, well, this is happening over there, that, and they're getting their information, but no one's physically there. They have their opinion, but no one's really able to say this is true. So for me, I wanted to experience war. I wanted to go out there.
mm,
I wanted to fight, and it was a whole new experience than I thought it would be. It taught me a lot about myself in stressful situations. It taught me a lot about myself and as a person, and who I was in those moments, compared to others who are around me. So that's a little vague, but what I'm trying to get across and say is like I learned more about myself by going down this path, more so than I would have if I wouldn't have joined the military and went into college. I think I would have just been, party, getting in trouble, what have you, because that's the kind of environment that it was there growing up. So I don't think anything good would have happened if I stayed home. So I think everything happens for a reason. So, and then did my two deployments with 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines. Once I went to Iraq, Haditha, Iraq, 2008 to 2009. And then 2010, we deployed to Afghanistan, which would be my second deployment. Um, and to kind of walk you briefly through this journey in Afghanistan, because this was probably the highlight of my deployments overall,
mm,
because of the combat, because of the frequent, practically because what I was trained to do, I got to do in Afghanistan. And so, one early morning, we're doing conducting a patrol. This has happened about September, and we're clearing out a building. There's about 12 of us. My team goes inside this building. I'm a team leader, but I'm having outer security, so that way when they exit the building, hey, it's clear. There's not, we can go this direction, we can go that direction. We're good. Um, but we're being, pretty quiet. So my team goes in, they kick down the door, nothing happens, everything's pretty meh, nothing exciting. And then I walk in because I need to, we're trying to be quiet. I was just gonna simply figure out what's going on, what's taking my team so long. And I trigger this IED that goes off. And it feels like I've been just hit by a truck. Everything kind of goes gray. My ears is ringing, and this happens very, very fast. All of a sudden I'm standing, and now I'm on the floor. But I think what kept me conscious was that dirt fell in my ear, which pissed me off. That bothered me a lot. I remember that specific detail, um, that I hated that dirt in my ear. But I'm trying to catch my breath and trying to figure out what just happened. And
Mm.
I knew physically where I was. I knew I was still in this building. I knew I was in a hallway. So there's two walls, on either side of me. So I'm trying to like move my feet to push myself upright so I can sit up. But my feet weren't doing what I was asking them to do. My legs weren't, doing what I was asking them to do, and my legs were actually burning. So I'm like, oh crap, like I'm a double amputee. So I decided not to look down and investigate that situation. More so because if my legs aren't responding, I kind of don't want to intensify um, that response. So what I ended up doing was focusing on training and trying to calm myself down. I knew my team was near me, and if I remained calm, they were going to remain calm, and everything was going to flow as it should, and it did. So our corpsman gets up to us, our medical personnel, and I'm talking to him. He's talking to me. I'm telling him, this is what I'm feeling. That way he can focus on putting on the tourniquet, stop the bleeding, do what he was trained to do. And the more I remained calm, I think it made them feel and my team feel um, less stress. So that way they can focus on getting me, out of that environment, transported to Kazvac, and moving up to a higher echelon of care. And that all happened actually very quickly. Everything was really smooth, and I woke up. Once I got on the helicopter, I woke up probably, I don't know, sometime that day, that night. I actually have no idea, to be honest with you. Um, but I woke up, my right leg was already amputated, which I think we kind of knew that from the injury at the site. And then transported to Germany, and then transported to Bethesda Hospital, where I woke up, not too long after. My mom was near me, and yeah, uh, long with a story, but that's a short version of it.
No, it's an amazing story of control in an uncontrollable situation.
Mhm.
Um, but the resilience that you had and the amount of uh, mental sort of preparation that you went through in order to deal with that moment is phenomenal to even hear as you explain it. And
Mhm.
the amount of support that you gave to your brothers, if you will, right?
Mhm.
To the team and the camaraderie that is established in such a hectic moment is amazing. How did your upbringing, how did moments with your mother and
Mhm.
also moments in before you got adopted sort of help you sort of reach that point, right? Or was it the training that you went through in boot camp? It had to be
Uh,
a little bit of mix of both.
yeah, it was definitely a mix of both. I was raised by a very strong woman who I still to this day I fear. She instilled in me a lot of great qualities that I think allowed me to get through those hard moments. And one thing that I think I carried most with me was would never want to disappoint my mom. So everything I did was to better myself, to show and prove to my mom that she raised a good kid despite my upbringing. My upbringing was a little bit rough, but I definitely wanted to show through what I was doing to my mom and let her be proud that she raised a good kid, a good son. And the military just kind of trained me to be prepared for unpredictable situations. So just like when that IED went off, it's unpredictable. Even though you're there, you expect those situations to happen. You don't know if they're gonna happen how you envision them, but mentally every day you're thinking about, oh, what if this happened? Well, this is what I was doing. Maybe not for everyone, but this is how my brain was operating. Was okay. If this happens, I need to do this. If this happens, I need to do this. And through all the training, it teaches you in a controlled environment. But once you're out of that controlled environment, downrange in Afghanistan, everything is practically free game. Anything can happen, and you have to rely on that training. You have to rely on your brothers next to you. You have to rely on what you know needs to happen to protect them. So, with all these pieces, it gave me the best chance of survival. Uh, Once any during any situation that was unpredictable were to happen. So yeah, it was definitely a mix of both. Uh, my upbringing and the military.
So you woke up, you're in the hospital bed, um, your leg has been amputated.
Mm.
Does that same confidence in the moment continue, or I remember when I was on the Giants, and I've never been amputated, but I've been injured. I've had surgery, and I can think through moments where I've struggled. By no means a similar situation, but it was hard. It was hard to sort of recognize your own mortality and the fact that if you play sports, you play American football, you're taught to be invincible. In your military, you're taught to be invincible.
Mm.
But then when all of a sudden, you bleed, that's when character is challenged.
Yes. So, so when I was actually in the hospital, I didn't think about my own injury. I actually only cared about my guys who were still downrange, who were still in Afghanistan. I didn't really think too heavily about my injury during that phase. Because the way I looked at it was just like, well, it's already amputated. I can't do anything. I wish I could do something. And I had to tell myself, well, the only thing you can do right now is recover. And that's the best you can do at this, moment in time. I, I no longer can physically be there to help my guys as much as I wish I was. And so the physical recovery wasn't hard, but what was hard was the mental recovery, that mental battle of once I'm now out of the hospital and I'm now going to my own appointments. I'm waking up, every day doing my appointments, going to all these different types of, prosthetics, physical therapy. That's when I start to recognize that this is not as easy as I thought it was going to be. Um, because mentally I was in a dark place. I didn't know where I should go from this point, and this is probably where I would say there's nothing that trained me for that type of battle, um, that I was now going to go through. So it became very dark. I started to abuse my pain medication just to feel numb. I would like to just say I put on a mask when I was out and about. I put on a mask. Everyone saw me smiling. Everyone saw me happy. But when I was back in my room, I'm questioning God. I'm yelling at God. I don't want to be alive. I, you know, wish things would have been different. But, like I said, I was abusing my pain meds to feel numb. And it got to a point where I was just like, this isn't me. And that goes back to, you know, I want to always make my mom proud. And I realized, like, this isn't me. Side note, when I was born a preemie on drugs. So abusing medication to this extent really, to me, was just like, this is not going to be me. I'm not going down this path. I need to make some type of change, and I need to make it now. And so what I did was I kind of just quit my medication cold turkey and recognized that I needed to do something else. And I had to tell myself, well, what do you want to do? What do I want to be doing? And I'm like, I want to travel. I want to be active again. So I set out and found Paralympic sports, found Paralympic camps, and focused more on, being able to get up and run and do all these different things, and worked well with my physical therapists and trainers to be able to do all these things. So once I was able to start getting up and travel and going to these camps, I was happy. I was just like, this is what I've been waiting for. This is what I want to be doing. And I just kept trying to find the next thing I can do, the next challenge. Now it's a challenge. I'm finding these challenges to challenge me, and that made me actually very happy to do that. I wanted to continue finding these challenges and prove to myself that I might be injured, but my injury does not define me. I might be missing a leg, but this does not define me. And I, would just keep trying to explore different areas, from running marathons to climbing the highest mountains in the world to sprinting against, the top Paralympic athletes in the world. And each one, boosted my confidence, but also gave me, an eye opener, that I can do anything that I set my mind to. And so I even to this day, I still enjoy it. I still look for that next challenge. I'm just like, what's going to break me? Like, I ran a marathon. I'm just like, it's all mental. I can do this. My body's going to want to shut down, but I can do this. And, I knocked out 2 marathons, then I go and climb the highest mountain in the world. I'm like, this is tiring. I could die, but I'm like, I want to show others that whoever sees this or whoever sees me, to know that, if he can do it, I can do it. And I'm no one special. I'm the average person like everyone else. I just am willing to push myself to find, to unravel, that person within myself. So, and a lot of these things humble me. So, and I enjoy that feeling.
Yeah, it's not only the adrenaline, but it's the will. As I talked about before, it's that resilience, right? And your mom gave you that. Your experience, your life gave you that. So
Yeah.
Do you, I wrote in a book that I have this switch called it's an ape quote switch. It's when I just go into this whole nother world of being somebody, right? That's where I kind of find my strength. So I can only imagine you have several of those lives living within you that propels you while you're sprinting, or while you're doing a marathon, and at the 21st mile, you get tired, or when you're climbing to the top of a mountain and then all of a sudden you can't breathe, right? What's that drive, what's that endurance that comes out? What do you call it?
What do I call it? Grit. What do I like? I don't have a name for it. For me, it's I do it for others. And going back to when you said, when you're on top of that mountain, what do you what do you find as that motivation that drives you even further and forward? Even though every step is harder and harder. And for me, it was always thinking about my brothers who passed away during my deployment. I thought of them and thought about how, just how much fun, and this is specifically towards one of my actual expeditions on Mount Vincent. As I'm closer to the summit, it becomes harder. And I thought about my brothers who passed away. I had the Marine Corps flag in my backpack. And I thought about these guys who just would laugh if they saw what I was doing right now, just being an African American on top of the coldest mountain in the world. Just, it almost sounds crazy, but it was just so much joy and laughter And I thought about them all the way up there, and I thought about the guys that I served with, because it's a place that they would never envision me, and to see that, it was just like so many jokes in my own mind. And it became more about what I want others to see than it was about my own personal journey, because it started off just a very selfish personal um challenge. And the closer I got, I was just like, I'm always going to challenge myself. I need something else to drive me forward. And knowing that I was doing it for other people gave me that motivation, gave me that drive to say, I'm not going to quit. I don't have, that ability to say I'm going to quit ever. Uh, and I'm going to die doing it. And so, even going into the mountains, to the summit of Mount Vincent, summit of Kilimanjaro, completing 2 marathons, whatever it is, whenever I get to that point, I think about who this will help and how this can help someone. And I keep telling myself, if you stop here, yeah, it's good, but it's not enough. It's just not enough. And so I would just keep pushing, and then I realized, I think about all the people that it can help at some point. Even if it's just that one person, even if it's that one kid, or even if it's just someone who's going through a bad day, it's just anyone. I want to be able to help them through my story, through my actions, to let them know, like, you can do it. You just gotta find that will inside you and push through. And it's not easy for a lot of people. I can honestly say there's a lot of times where I'm just like, this is not easy. But at the same time, just like, I'm probably gonna die doing this, and that's the only way out, because there's no quitting. I think Will Smith said it best. So when he was just like, he had this story he was telling where he said, if we're on a treadmill and we're running, he's like, I'm going to beat you because I'm not going to quit. It's something of that nature, and you can correct me if anyone knows what that is. But I remember hearing him say that, and I thought about that a lot, and I was just like, yeah, that's how it is. You don't quit. You just keep going. You go until your body no longer can go, and more than likely you will outdo anyone you're competing.
I love that. And I think you actually decided to call it a whale. So there is a name for it. there is a name for it. But as you were sitting on top of the mountain, and you were contemplating, and as you stood up and as you raised the Marine Corps flag, and you thought about your brothers, and you thought about your life, you thought about the laughs and the cries, and you thought about your experience, you thought about your the camaraderie that's been around you. As an African American man, as a black man, doing things that black people just really don't do.
We do not,
so to speak, right? Either we don't do it, maybe we're not supposed to do it, or maybe we just haven't been introduced to it, and now you have, right? Mm-hmm. So how did you feel, and what did you think in sort of the realm of diversity's for diversity's sake? What did you think in the realm of, like, I'm a black man standing on top of the coldest mountain. I'm a black man that is an amputee that just ran 2 marathons. I'm a black man that just beat the pants off of some people sprinting. Right? What did you think?
I was always empowered by that. I wanted more diversity. I wanted more black people on mountains, or African American people on mountains, because you see a lot of African Americans in a lot of running sports, more short distance. But I would love to see more African Americans out in the mountains, hiking more, climbing more. And so for me, being on top of that mountain, I was just like, this is hopefully going to motivate others to get out there. And growing up, I grew up in the city, so there was no hiking, there was no anything of the sort that I've done at this point. I did not grow up as an athlete. I did not grow up in the mountains. I did not grow up sprinting. I did not grow up running. I did not grow up with any of these feats that I have done thus far. And so all these endeavors are new to me. All these challenges are new. And I figure them out along the way. But if someone was just like, oh, you're a great athlete, I'm just like, well, what did you do as a kid? I'm like, I didn't grow up playing really any sports. I didn't grow up, on the high school basketball, football, track team, anything. And so to see what I've gone through at this point is, I just hope that it helps and shows other people that, especially in, diverse community, African Americans, more specifically, because there's very few people in those realms, and which is it's a joke. It is a joke in my own mind when I'm out there on the mountains, on the trails. I'm just like, I'm probably the only black person out here, and it's a joke. But then at the same time, it's one of those things that you start to realize, it's like, why, like, why am I the only one out here? And then I have to question, I'm like, am I that insane? Is this just not for us? But it's something that I thought about a while back too. And it's not that it's not for us. It's just we don't grow up with it. And I think that's how I start to recognize that I feel like a lot of African Americans don't grow up with the ability to be outdoorsy. They don't have either the means, they don't have, the gear, or they just don't have anyone to show them, what it's like to be outdoors, how to navigate the outdoors. We, it's kind of narrow-minded to even say, but I feel like a lot of African American people only know sports of sprinting, basketball, football, but not the endurance sports. Very few are out there, climbing, running marathons, ultra marathons. So, and I just think it's either we don't have the means, or we just don't have those. We don't have the right teaching to kind of navigate those realms or those sports.
What would you say to someone who said you couldn't do like endurance sports because you didn't grow up like that?
Oh, what would I say to someone who,
like, someone walks up to you and they say, you can't do endurance sports. You didn't grow up like that. You never did that. I mean, I'm sure there's people that have told you a bunch of times you can't do that. And I'm sure that fuels your fire. And I'm sure that puts another log on that internal burning flame. Like, but someone walks up to you and says, why are you here trying to run this marathon? You can't do this. You didn't even grow up. You don't even understand it.
If someone told me that I couldn't do something plain and simple, I would set out and prove them wrong. That's my stubbornness in me. If you tell me that I can't do something, I'm going to figure out a way just to prove you wrong. I will hate probably the entire process of me doing that because I know I don't want to be doing it. But the simple fact you told me that I can't now set me on this path to prove you specifically wrong and prove that I can. And so, if someone was just like, oh, you can't go run a marathon. Well, you will see me running a marathon. I will hate it. I will be vomiting. I will want to die the entire way. But once I finish, I can come back and say, I did it. And to me, that's gratifying. That's pure satisfactory to me, because we all have the ability to do anything we set our minds to. And for anyone to say that you can't do something, it actually it's aggravating to even think that someone can tell someone that they can't do something, because it we all have the ability to accomplish anything. And so, yeah, I don't want to go on a whole nother tangent, but yeah,
This is not a tangent. This is the reason for the Someone Like Me speaker series by Gatorade Endurance. Like, this is the reason Gatorade Endurance is doing this, right? Because there's other people out there that feel this, but they've never seen this, and therefore they never get to experience this.
Yes.
Right? The same logs that you stack on the fire inside you is like the same thing that so many young kids that are running down the street have. It's an innate to who they are, and they just have never been able to have that access in order to be able to try new things. And so that's bringing this face. And bringing this personality and this voice of what you have to be able to speak to those young people of all race, creeds, and color, and say, look, if you want to jump on an airplane and go to Mount Kilimanjaro and climb to the top, like Kionte did, like Corporal Story did, you can get to the top. If you want to go run a marathon, and it doesn't matter if you have 2 legs or 1 leg or no legs, you can do it too, right? Because the fact that it's a mindset, right?
It is.
And they need
it's all mindset.
They need to hear that story from you. So you can continue on and keep talking, because the fact that like I'm inspired by what you're saying. Like, this is giving me so much internal fire and strength. I mean, what do you think needs to change though about the endurance community? What would you fix, or how would you fix it? What would you say needs to be adjusted, if you will?
I wouldn't say anything needs to be fixed or even adjusted. I would just say there needs to be more inclusion. That's how I would say it. Because endurance, it's for some people, it's not for everybody. I'm a short distance sprinter. I enjoy sprinting more than I do enjoy long distance, running a marathon. I can honestly tell you right now, I don't train for any marathons that I've ever done. Because I don't like.
Wait, hold on one second. wait. I wanted you to continue, but I have to ask the question. You don't train for it? What do you mean you don't train for it?
I don't.
You just get up and just like, oh, I think I'll go run a marathon. Sounds like a good thing to do today.
I mean, the most I'll probably do is 5 miles before I actually do a marathon. But I don't enjoy long distance to that extent. I look at marathon as they're a challenge for me mentally. I've proven to myself in different sporting endeavors that my body can handle it. 26 miles, it can handle it. Will I break down at 12? Probably so. Will I struggle at 14? Will I question my entire existence at 16? Will I, wish I never started this at 18? Probably so. But again, going back to that mindset that I don't quit, I don't worry about getting to those barriers. I actually welcome those barriers. I want to find what's going to break me. I want to experience and feel like, oh, this is it. This is where I start to question, am I going to just throw in the towel right now? And it's like, no, I can give it I can get to the next mile. And there was a marathon. It was the Marine Corps marathon. That was probably my first marathon I've ever done. It is the only marathon to this day that meant the most to me. And I probably, before the marathon, probably did 10 miles at best. And that's because everyone kept telling me I needed to train more. But at the same time, I'm sprinting. So kind of counterintuitive as an athlete. But I get to mile 16 and I start to question. I was like, I don't think I can do this. My body's cramping. My leg is like blistering. I'm having the shakes because I'm, now getting cold because I'm not properly hydrated. I'm dehydrated. I'm not properly fueled for this. Things that I didn't expect to really come across. But when I'm in that moment, I had to make a decision of what do I do now? I am here. I am this far in. What do I do now? Do I quit or do I keep pushing? And I told myself, I'm like, this is the marathon that means the most to me. I'm going to die on this path. If I'm getting carried off, I'm getting carried off unconscious, and that's it. That's what I carried through all my other challenges in life is that I I look at what I'm doing and recognize I'm not gonna quit, but in certain areas I can say I'm gonna take a rest. I'm gonna take a break. But I'm not quitting because I'm going to complete this. I'm going to finish this. And so that's a whole other side note back to what we're the point of this entire questioning. But that's what I want. I want more African Americans to be involved in that, and going and saying inclusion, just more so inclusion to the endurance sports. I feel a lot of kids who don't have, really just people in general who don't have the means, the training, or just the experience, or just people who are willing to push themselves to that extent. It's not shared enough. That experience is not shared enough. And so I would say inclusion in the endurance sports would be ideal. I wouldn't want to change anything because it's not for really anyone to change. We can all just go out there and run long distances. We can all, go out there and climb, but it's all about if you know that it even exists. Like climbing mountains, I would have never thought I'd climb the mountains that I've climbed if it wasn't for coming across the right people who knew about the sport, who knew about getting to these mountains. And so I would say, yeah, that word inclusion really comes to mind a lot right now, because the more these experiences are shared, the more that you can bring people with you, the more they start to recognize that this is a thing that I didn't know existed. And that gives, a new meaning to someone's life, a new experience that they can now share with someone else. So that's how I would probably address diversity in the endurance sports, or in the endurance realm.
A couple more questions. I when you talk about diversity, when you talk about inclusion, and talking about welcoming in a different community into an already established community, sometimes there are challenges, and I can imagine some point along the way people treated you a little bit differently. How did you work through that?
Um, as an athlete, in the last 2 years, as I've been an athlete, which is I've only been an athlete for 10 years, no one's treated me that way.
Hmm.
Um, because, and the reason why I don't think anyone has ever looked down upon me is because I I know that I think I can prove to them that I can do whatever they're deciding to do. You want to go, climb the highest mountain? I can go do that. I got one missing leg. What's your excuse? I don't doubt myself in that. And so I mean, I have people who make fun of my skin color, who wants to be,
Hmm.
try to do that, but as an athlete, as a person, no, there's no one who's ever tried to bring me down, because one, I don't let someone else bring me down. I bring my own self down, and I think that that's my own personal weakness. Is I can bring my own self down because of a, my own personal doubts, through my own personal struggles. But someone can't bring me down. They can't be like, oh, because you're black and you're out here doing X, Y, and Z. It's like, oh, you don't belong here. I'm like, ah, if I can outdo you and I'm here, I technically I belong here. You don't belong here. So, but that's also something my mom instilled in me when I was younger too, and I think it just happens just to be that time that she grew up. And you don't let people bring you down, no matter the race, skin color, anything. You don't let someone talk down to you, or bring you down. And even if they do, that's nothing against you. That's someone else's, issue. You don't take on someone else's issue. You don't let someone else bring you down. You know, and if someone wants to be ignorant, then let them be ignorant.
Is that why you wanted to participate in this conversation with Gatorade Endurance? Because
No,
no one's going to tell you what to do. No one's going to bring you down. All those motivations by your mother. I mean, is that why you wanted to tell your story?
no, I wanted to tell my story because I hope it can reach the next person. Um, I I honestly I love sharing my story. Being an African American, being an amputee, being someone who's accomplished so many different feats. I love sharing my story because I hope it will reach as many people as it possibly can on every different platform that I can possibly reach. And even if it's one person, that one person can share their experience with the next person. And I hope that down the road, these lives will be changed. People will look at their situation slightly different through their struggles, what they push through, and say, that person motivated me, that person inspired me. Because there's not a lot of people that inspire other people. I feel
Mm.
like in this day and age, we all want to bring each other down, and I want to be that person that people can look up to, that can, I can motivate, I can inspire to do better, to do more with what they have. And if you want to be an athlete, I want to be that athlete that, one day you come up to me and be like, I saw you, and now I'm racing against you. I'm, I'm, I'm here to outdo you. Um, that's what I want to be. Um, I don't want to share my story and feel like I'm talking down to anyone, or feel like I'm belittling any other person, because I had my own struggle that's gotten me here, and everyone has a story. So whatever your story is, whatever your journey is, I just hope I inspire you to keep moving forward. Um, and that's why I love sharing my story, and that's why I'm here. Sharing my story with you is because I enjoy it, and I hope that it will resonate through whoever it reaches.
Well, I will say, Kionte Storey, you inspire me, and I'm for certain that anybody that's listening right now, they've been inspired too.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
and we just want to say thank you to you and to your mother for giving you that drive, because there really are no excuses except the ones that you make for yourself. And I think the
Yes.
quote that I saw you use several times is, anything is possible as long as you stay focused and believe in yourself.
Hmm.
And you are a true believer in yourself, because you are able to, and you have accomplished anything you have set your mind to. So um tell Koja we said hello.
I will.
Your
He's sleeping.
your Siberian Husky, your
Yes.
dog, who is, I'm sure, really close and nearby. But I
Hmm.
just want to say thank you for joining the Someone Like Me speaker series by Gatorade Endurance.
Thank you for having me.
And Gatorade Endurance is dedicated to fostering inclusivity, like you're talking about,
Mhm.
in the sports sports world of which it already fuels, right? By amplifying these important voices and stories, we hope to inspire individuals to explore endurance sports because they see someone like themselves
Mhm.
in that space, and that's someone like Kionte Storey. And so, thank you for your time today. Thank you for being open and vulnerable and being a part of this journey. And I hope to see you out there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again for having me.